Alright, we're going to sew a small 5x8 tarp. We're going to attach some different tie-up points. On this particular tarp, it's notched at the midpoints with little V's. Show you where to put the tie-outs on each side, and then you just also put them on the corner. I've included some two extra pieces of the tie-out material and reinforcement. And there's what the little notches look like. They're just little V's notched in the fabric when I cut them. So I like to use on the hems a 1/2 inch fold and then a 3/4 inch fold. For the reinforcement pieces, I have these reinforced vinyl pieces, different color on the kit tarps. I'm using yellow on this white one, and so it'll need to be in the amount of the seam, a 1/2 inch plus 3/4 of an inch. If it's easier, you can go around and make little marks. At those points with a Sharpie or a piece of chalk or something. Some people find that a little bit easier. So we're going to start near the corner, but not on the corner, just the way I like to do it. And we're going to start out with a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch. I would recommend either a heavy nylon thread like bonded 33 or 46, or if you're going to go lighter, which home machines like lighter thread, I'd use a polyester because the polyester stretches less in the lighter fabric, lighter threads. If you're using a heavier thread, then just the fact that it's heavier keeps it from stretching. So that either polyester or nylon works. So I'm going to set my stitch length fairly long for this. I'm using a heavy nylon thread. Some people will take a little piece of masking tape and mark right here at the width that they want it, as sort of a seam guide, an edge guide. Now here I've come to my notch, so you can kind of see it through this fabric. I'm going to put my reinforcement piece right in there, and I want to push it up firmly against the edge. That'll provide the best reinforcement with this method. Now this silicone coated nylon, it won't fray. The coating keeps it from fraying, but folding it over twice gives it a little more strength at the edge. Now I'm close to the corner. I'm going to stick the needle down in it to hold it in place. While I measure in just a little bit to make it easier to get the corner right. Let's see, so a 1/2 inch plus 3/4 of an inch. A 1 1/4 inches down until I get it just inside the fabric to hold everything together. Fold it over. There's my 1/4 inch. When you approach the corners and you want to slow down a little bit, I often just use a hand crank or two to make sure everything's not running over the end with these big power machines. Let me turn the corner. Edge that notch. There it is. There. See the knots in there. Should have unfolded this before I started. Usually when I'm doing production, it's coming off and you have a big stack. Everything's all laid flat. All right, make this a little easy for myself. Inch and a 1/4. Sip of tea. Oh, ran out of bobbin thread. I've pre-wound several here. I'm using a khaki color on the white, so it shows up a little bit for you to be able to see where the thread's doing. Especially when you start putting the tie outs on, it'll show up well. Now, I want to long run there, so I'm going to match the seams up. I'm going to go back and forth just a little bit where I start to make sure it's secured nice. Run over the same stitch holes. You won't need to seal the hem of the tarp. And on this, since there's no center seam, there'll be no seams at all to seal. If you do want to seal, say you want to put a little reinforced tie out somewhere in the middle to give some headroom or something like that, you can sew that on, and sew the tie up webbing on top of that, on the top of the fabric. That way when you turn it over, you can just seal all the seams at once on the underside. And with silicone fabric, you want to use silicone sealer, like GE silicone too from the hardware store, or silicone windshield sealer, that sort of thing. Okay, we got a notch coming up right there. For another center tie out. Feel free to speed through the video. Also, there's one right here on the side of the machine I can use too. Notch. And there, don't want to pass it by. There's my notch right there. It's a big one. Sometimes a straight knife makes them pretty good size, but it will all hide nicely under there. myself a little difficult here, so I'm going to finish it by sewing right down to the end. Kind of baste it in place so I can make a neat end. Neat corner. And we'll fold it over. Bit. So now I've gone all the way around and inserted the tie-out points. Now we're going to finish up the corners and the center tie-outs. So I like to fold it in half and give it a little crease. I'm going to put this on the diagonal so the force of pull is good. I'm going to make sure that the back part of this is farther out than the diagonal corners of that. I'm going to try and minimize the number of starts and stops and clipping a thread and still make it strong. So I want to find the spot on here that's the same width farthest out as the webbing. And I'll start right here. I'm going to decrease my stitch length by about a quarter to a third over the hem one. Make it a little easier to sew and stronger. See, you can do a lot of hand cranking on it if you're not used to it. Slow things down. So I'm going to make 4 passes. And then I'm going to come to a Z-tack. Come up here. Back, and I'm going to come all the way down up to the fabric there, not quite to the edge though. I don't want to go clear to the edge and make a weak spot right on the corner. So now I'm going to sew around the reinforcement patch here a little bit. Get it to line up with that Z-tack again. Go back on it. So now I've got some reinforcement. And all these loose threads on this one corner. Clean those up a little bit. So there's 4 rows, 1 row, 4 rows. So that's 40, and that's, I'm getting about 5 stitches per width of the fabric. So that gives me about 45 stitches. So if you have a 3-pound thread, you're going to have about over 100-pound stitch strength on this tie-out, which is stronger than probably than the fabric itself. If you have a real strong thread like I'm using, which is about 5 pounds a stitch, you're getting, you know, a couple 300 pounds of strength in this whole system. It's less likely the thread will break. It's more likely if you don't have enough stitches it will come loose at a corner or something rather than break. But you don't want to do too much. If you perforate the fabric too much, then you weaken it that way. So you've got a nice reinforcement piece to put it in and spread out the force. And then the fabric itself is very stretchy. So I'm going to do a hem one now. You can see that. So let's crease that. I'm going to start kind of in the center, about a 1/4 inch in. I'm just going to go all the way around this one. Trim that all I can. I kind of get it out of the. All right. that in the center there. 3, 4. Z-tack. Here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. Ran over just a little bit, but that doesn't really hurt anything. Alright, so there's the corner seam, a middle seam on the hem. Now if you want to tie it in the middle, I like to go all the way around and then I tack it on like this. Each end is tacked on and then I use a Z-tack to form that center spot. And I like to think about the direction of pull. In this case, this is set up for a pull coming out this way. If you want to put in I include one of these little glove hooks and a little bit of 1/2 inch webbing. If you want to, on a seam or at a reinforcement or a center tile or something, you can add one of these, and that way you have a little place inside. Put it on the underside, you have a place to hang your flashlight or keep a mosquito head net or something up off your face.